Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in and when you're watching this video. My name is Melissa Parks, and I work as a coach for global nomads living around the world. And I work with them online. I do this because I lived as a global nomad. Well, I am a global nomad myself, and I lived abroad for several years, and that's when I got started working with this community. And I'm doing this series, this Facebook Live series about the myths of self-compassion. Today is going to be myth number 5. And so I've been doing it for a couple of weeks now. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm getting trained. I'm headed to the Netherlands on Wednesday. So I live in Seattle at the moment in the United States, but I'm headed over to the Netherlands in order to pursue a training to be trained as a teacher for a course that's called Mindful Self-Compassion. So in some of the previous videos, I talked a little bit more about this course that I'm going to get trained to teach. And what I just told a little bit about was just the format of the course and also how I took this course last year and just found it to be so transformative. And that's really what inspired me to sign up to get trained as a teacher so I can share the resources with so many other people. So last week I talked a little bit about why one of the myths of self-compassion being that self-compassion could make us more narcissistic or self-centered. I explained, why that's not the case. I explained a little bit about the differences between self-compassion and self-esteem. And I also explained why actually self-compassion is even better or more important to cultivate than self-esteem. So if you missed that video, you can head over to the videos tab on my page and you can see, you can rewatch it now. But today I want to talk about the last myth, or the 5th myth of self-compassion, which is one I see a lot, not only in my work, but also with a lot of friends and colleagues. And that's this fear that self-compassion will make me selfish. And this is one that it occurs even more so, I think, for people who are in a role of like a caregiver position. So that could be being a parent or somebody that's taking care of an aging parent or a family member. Also people in like a helping profession, so people who are counselors, therapists, coaches, nurses, doctors. There's so many people that are affected often by this fear and misconception. And then also what we see is that it tends to be even more ingrained, this fear amongst women as well. So a lot of us have been, most of us, I would say, have been socialized to be helpers and giving and take care of others. But we haven't necessarily also received the message of the importance of taking care of ourselves and taking care of our own needs. So I worked for many years as a psychologist, and this is something I ran into a lot, again, with my clients that I worked with, and also with fellow psychologists and therapists. And it's something I continue to see with now that I'm working as a coach as well. So much of what I do with my clients is helping them to, make themselves a priority and to make changes in their own life. And we really can't do that unless we're, getting all of our needs met and taking care of ourselves. So let me head over to my cheat sheet a little bit, make sure I'm telling you everything I wanted to make sure I shared today. So I just wanted to also share a little personal thing too, is that this is a misconception about self-care and self-compassion that I had to get over myself as well. I think it was about 6 years ago. I was living in Madrid and working with a therapist of my own there. And I remember sitting in her office and telling her, like, well, I understand what you're trying to tell me to do about practicing self-care, but it just sounds like it's a rather selfish thing to do. So I've gone through my own journey as well of just coming to a place of recognizing the importance of self-care and self-compassion and making sure that those are a priority so that I can do the work that I do in the world of helping to take care of other people too. So if you're feeling like, you also have this fear of like, oh, is it a little bit selfish? You're not alone. I've been there too. And there's hope to get to yourself to a different mindset as well. And that's a little bit of what I want to do with today's video too. So I think, a lot of times, again, it comes from like the messages we receive in society, maybe, kind of the values that in the homes that we grow up in. Often parents, they're in helping professionals themselves, or, they want to emphasize the importance of being compassionate and caring for others and being generous. But they don't often couple that, or maybe they don't even know, the importance of also taking care of ourselves. And so, that's why so many people grow up with this kind of misconception about the importance of prioritizing the care of others and not necessarily our own as well. So one of the things that I've found to be really helpful is this metaphor of a cup. And I'm just realizing I wish I would have brought a cup with me for the video, but I do have a water bottle. So we'll use the empty water bottle, right? So you've probably heard this idea that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And I would even say that, when you have an empty cup, you might inadvertently be going around and asking other people to fill your cup for you. So this is what I really like to use with clients. And it's this idea, right, that, we have a cup, we are filling it all the time. Well, that's the hope is that we're filling it. And you're also probably giving, you're like pouring from that cup quite frequently, right, to take care of friends, family members, clients, colleagues, children. And so when you're just only emptying from the cup, right, you're going to get to a point where there's no more water left, right? Like, okay, you kind of run yourself dry. And at that point, not only are you not going to be able to give anymore, you're not going to be able to pour from that cup, but also you might run into that problem of, if you're not filling the cup up, you might accidentally be asking other people to fill it for you. And that could be through things like if you're not self-validating, you might be asking for others to validate you. Or if you're not self-soothing, you might be looking for that soothing only in other people. I mean, of course, we do need other people. But the thing is that we need there to be a balance. We need to make sure we're getting some of our needs met. And also, of course, other people can help get some of those needs met too. So, right, we want to fill our cups up, right? We see that there's that importance. If we want to be able to give to other people, we've got to be filling our cup. And self-compassion is such a powerful tool to be able to help get our needs met and make sure that our cup doesn't run dry. So when I previously lived in Madrid, and when I was living there, I worked I helped run a support group for parents of teens and adults adult children who were struggling with an eating disorder. And so much of the work that we did, which was really surprising to the parents, so much of the work was about not about how could they take care of their children. There was definitely an emphasis on that, but also so much about how are you going to take care of yourself? And this empty cup idea of like, you need to be taking care of yourself because you need to be modeling that example of self-care to your child as well. And you also really need, in order for you to not burn out as a caregiver, you need to be taking care of yourself as well. So unfortunately, I didn't know about self-compassion back then. I think it could have been a really great complement to bring that in and bring in some of the exercises for those parents. I think it would have been a really great addition. And then also, I mentioned earlier that there are so many people who are particularly working in helping professions and who end up suffering from burnout or suffering from something called compassion fatigue. And so the interesting thing is that research so it's not just like everything I've said about this metaphor, it's also that research suggests that self-compassion can help. What we know is that counselors and therapists who are more self-compassionate are less likely to experience stress and caregiver burnout. They tend to be more satisfied with their careers, feel more energized, happy, and grateful for being able to make a difference in the world. And I don't have any research to give you about other helping professions, but I really wouldn't be surprised if that was the case in other professions as well. I know some people working in the Netherlands to help support doctors specifically, medical professionals, and increasing their self-compassion because they just see that there's such a risk of burnout and people working in those professions. So I really think that there is such a need in all these different helping professions to increase our sense of self-compassion. And one of the reasons that this might help, one of the reasons why it might help is the fact, so we're social creatures, right? We need other people. And we have this part of us that's been developed to really be attuned to the needs of other people around us. And so what happens is that we get tuned in to other people when we're exposed to other people's stories of pain and suffering. We have pain centers that are activated in our brains, right? So we're not only just hearing what they're saying, right? But it's actually activating something in our brains as well, saying like, this hurts. And we know that people who are more empathetic or who feel feelings more deeply, that they might be more at risk of this happening, right? Especially, so if you're in a caregiving role, this is going to be happening again and again and again. And that's where that risk of burnout can come in. But when we can give ourselves self-compassion, we can create a sort of protective buffer. And that can really help us to continue to give compassion again and again to people, even though, like, even though it can be really difficult, right, we do have that buffer that we're putting into place. And then, we can do this without feeling drained too. Another thing to keep in mind with this argument about like, well, self-compassion is selfish, right? Well, actually, I want you to think about the last time that you found yourself in like kind of a spiral of self-criticism. Were you thinking about other people, or were you just thinking about yourself, right? Did you have more resources or less resources to give to those people, those others around you? I think the answer probably is that no, if we're in a place of self-criticism, we're not able to like have those resources and that level of compassion to hand out, to give to other people. So actually, when, beating ourselves up can actually be sort of a form of self-centeredness, a form of selfishness. When we're kind and nurturing, though, we can meet our emotional needs, and then we can be there to meet the needs of other people. So there's a quote I have here that I wanted to share with you, a quote from the Dalai Lama that I really think is just really kind of drives this point home about the importance of practicing self-compassion. So what he says is that for someone to develop a genuine compassion towards others, first, he or she must have a basis upon which to cultivate compassion. And that basis is the ability to connect to one's own feelings and to care for one's own welfare. Caring for others requires caring for oneself. So I love this idea because it's so different from the message that we've probably received. And that's, just the idea that we can't really have full compassion. We can't fully care for other people if we don't have that foundation of self-compassion to build on. That's what's going to inform us about compassion. That's what's going to really open up our hearts and create that space for us to send out compassion to other people. So again, and self-compassion is not about saying my needs are more important than yours, or my needs are the only ones that are important. It's just saying that my needs need to they need to be met first so that I can meet your needs. And I think another metaphor about like to take into consideration here too is that metaphor of when you're on an airplane, right? And they say, make sure to put on your own oxygen mask first if there's an emergency, right? And like, how often do we put on somebody else's oxygen mask first in our day-to-day lives, right? So just thinking about that too as a way to practice self-compassion, putting on your oxygen mask first, making sure that your needs are met first so that you can put on the oxygen mask of somebody else. So it's been such a pleasure to share these 5 myths of self-compassion with all of you over the past few weeks. There are so many reasons to practice self-compassion, but I know that there are so many misconceptions that can come up, or internal barriers or fears that can come up. So I hope that, with these videos, I've been able to kind of, break down a few of those myths and help you to just see, okay, actually, maybe this could be a really helpful thing for me to cultivate. The good news is that we know that even if we have a lower level of self-compassion now, there are ways that we can increase our self-compassion. So in one of the first videos, I talked about the self-compassion break. Later, I'll post a link on this video too to make sure that you have access to that, because I have a separate video that introduces the self-compassion break. Something small and simple we can do throughout our day. You can also try writing a letter to yourself. Try writing a letter to a friend because often we're much more compassionate and kind to our friends. So try writing a compassionate letter to a friend and then switch it around and read it for yourself. That can often be a great thing. Or sometimes it can just be small things we do, right? Just asking ourselves, like, what do I need right now? Do I need to like close my eyes for a couple of minutes? Do I need to grab a glass of water? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Like, just making sure we're getting our needs met and taking care of ourselves in the way we would care for a friend, a loved one, a child. I would also really encourage all of you to check out the course that I'm going to be teaching. There are courses offered around the world, as well as online options. So I'll include a link for that as well for you. It's through the Center of Self-Compassion, the Center of Mindful Self-Compassion. I'll post the link so you have access to that. And then you can also get this workbook, which is awesome. I know I've talked about it in other videos too, the Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook, and you can walk through the course on your own. It also includes some guided meditations that you'll have access to. So there's just so many different ways that you can go about this journey of self-compassion. I personally really love the classes because it's a great way to interact with other people and really drives home the importance of common humanity, which is one of those important pieces of self-compassion. So I hope that, again, that all of you have enjoyed this video, that you're going to just, the rest of the next couple of months, you're going to start your own journey of self-compassion, please feel free to add any comments on this video, to write me with any questions that you might have. And let's see, I just want to make sure I didn't have anything else I wanted to make sure that to tell you. No, I just really hope that all of you are all ready to just give self-compassion a try and invest some energy and intention and attention into taking care of yourselves. So wherever you are, I hope that you have a great start to your week, and take care. Bye.